Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please look us up on your favorite podcast app, subscribe, like, and share so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to further support us, visit patreon.com/speakingout and check out the different rewards. You'll find exclusive rewards if you sign up as a patron of the podcast. Thank you for your support, and let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's podcast with host Jimmy Hinton.
Woo!
I know we're going vintage. We're bringing back the old.
Wow! Yes, we are. And Jimmy's mama, Clara.
Thank you to our patrons, guys. I got to tell you this. We got to start with this because
I know. Yes.
we did our monthly Zoom for we created a new tier on Patreon.com/speaking out. We started a new tier called the Book Club tier, and we do a monthly Zoom with our patrons on that tier, and it was phenomenal, wasn't it?
It was like the absolute best.
It was really good.
And I think everybody in the group agreed. It was
Yeah.
awesome. It really was.
So we discuss my book, my memoir, The Devil Inside, and we're going to, of course, explore topics related to you being the
Right.
former spouse of an abuser and, you know, all of those dynamics, the parent of abuse survivors. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of really good stuff. And we have forms we let people or have people. We don't let them. We don't give them permission.
Yeah.
We have people ask questions beforehand, and then we go through those questions that they have related to the material for that month, and it was really good.
It was great because we dug deeper, but only to the level that people wanted to. We
Yeah.
answered their questions to the best of our ability and knowledge. We're learning and growing together. We're digging deep into your book and deep into the topic of what makes an abuser.
We are.
You know, right.
So yeah, when we talk about interacting with our patrons, like we genuinely interact with
That
them.
was
And,
fantastic.
You know, it's
It
not
really
like
was.
people become patrons and then they never hear from
No.
us. We routinely interact with our patrons. We love you guys, and we would not have this podcast without you. I can promise you that. So today's topic, I saw this in the news actually just today. Florida senator fights back over nude images stolen from her. And this is Lauren Book, who you may or may not know, but we've known about Lauren Book for a long time. She's an abuse survivor, an advocate. She's a senator now in the
Right.
state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually use, like I've talked about her materials, the Safer, Smarter Schools. She has Safer, Smarter Kids, and her curriculum is really good.
It's fantastic, and Lauren is a true blue. She's been out advocating hard and steady for years. In fact, she was probably our only resource when we began
Yeah,
advocating. There just were not a lot of advocates out there. Lauren was. She was on the ball. She was working with her father, who is in the legal arena, and Lauren has accomplished a lot over the years.
and her book is excellent.
It's
I've read her
fantastic.
book, and it is really good. So anyway, this hit the news today. That it's not that recent, but I think it just became public. She just did an interview about this, and I want to bring up a couple key points. One is that I'm not going to read from this because it's a pretty lengthy article, but I will link to it in the description here of this episode. But what happened was she and her husband took pictures. I don't know if there were videos, but you know, this was clearly for their own personal use. And people can say what they want, and if you read comments of these articles, you'll find out what people think. If you don't want them stolen, you shouldn't take them. Well, I mean, I understand that, but that doesn't take away how wrong it is to exploit somebody in this way, especially knowing that she was an abuse survivor. Like, she was She was
Right.
singularly targeted
No.
because
Well,
she experienced
okay.
abuse as a kid.
In case you haven't read the article yet or are not aware, these were nude photos taken between Lauren and her husband. So it wasn't like it was boyfriend, girlfriend, teenage years type of thing. They
And
were
I think they were
married,
pretty recent.
right? They were a married couple who shared photos. Now, like Jimmy said, you may or may not agree with this, but what goes on inside Lauren's home is Lauren's business, only now it's not.
Right.
Now it's the world's business.
Yeah. And here's what she says. Here's a quote. She did an article with the Associated Press, and she said, "I hate that this happened to me. I hate it, hate it. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. But I'll take it because I know that I can do something about it." So she's actually creating legislation that makes it a
Right.
felony for people who steal these images. And I want to give a major trigger warning at this point, because I think that it's important to read what I read to you earlier
Yes.
from this article.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
She read the conversations that people had on the internet, because this stuff is out there, right? And it's out there forever.
Right.
She'll never be
Right.
able to scrap all of the pictures and videos of her that are out there. One of them was she took a photo of her breasts after a lumpectomy, to show a scar, and sent that to a personal friend. Now, I don't know the circumstances behind that, if this was a nurse friend or what
Right.
it was, but whatever. Again, not really our business. But the scar from the lumpectomy is why she sent it. That wasn't
Right.
erotic material that she was sending.
Right.
Those pictures were stolen, and
I think that's horrific.
yeah,
It
that's
is. It's horrific.
just abusive on so many different levels, and traumatizing on so many different levels. But here's the trigger warning. And honestly, like, this is pretty brutal. So if you're easily triggered, I just fast forward about 40 seconds. She said, the conversations people had on the website made the horror worse. Here's a direct quote from Lauren. "They were reading about who I was and talking about how I'm a survivor of rape. So let's try to get some rape videos. Can we get some of her getting raped, killed, tortured? Can we make some of that? Can we find it? How can we get it?" These are the comments that people
They're sick.
are giving as they're
There's
consuming
sick minds out there.
pictures
Jimmy.
of her.
Sick,
How do we make
sick
deep
minds
fake
out there? Right.
videos? How do we take it to a level 50 out of 10? And how do we re-traumatize her in the worst
Right.
possible way?
Right. Sick.
I mean, this kind of stuff it's horrific, and it's happening. So I think our point with talking about Lauren is one that you really need to protect yourself. She's pretty sure, and she will get to the bottom of this, or the investigators will, but she's pretty sure that what happened was these photos, which, by the way, she deleted.
All right.
She didn't have them. It sounds like she didn't have them on her phone for very long. She deleted them, and she was shocked to find that they were stolen and they were sold. They were found on servers in Sweden and Russia.
I'm sure she got it. Not she. Somebody got a pretty penny for them.
Yeah.
Because of who she is.
And the way that this guy got caught is that he's a 19-year-old from Florida, and he was trying to extort her. And he said, "I'm going to release a bunch of more of these if you don't give me money." So the police, as part of the
Wow.
investigation, they posed as Lauren and came up with a meetup place, as
Okay.
Lauren.
Wow.
And this guy actually was dumb enough to show up, and which is crazy to me because he's smart enough to
Hack the pictures. Yeah.
photos, but dumb enough to show up in person.
What did we just say, Jimmy, though, in our private Zoom? Every person like that trips themselves up at some point. They
Yeah.
get radically sloppy.
And
They
greedy.
really do.
This guy was
Greedy
greedy.
and
He
sloppy.
wanted
It
money. He wanted
happens
fame.
every time. It really does. But the destruction that is left behind is Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, she said in this article, she said, truth be told, if it weren't for my children, I would have ended my life. She said it brought up all the stuff, all of it that you think that you've gotten under your belt, that you've fixed. You fixed it and you changed it, and then all of a sudden, here it is in front of your face.
That's heart crushing. It really is.
I mean, she's
to
done
hear that.
years
She has. Yeah.
of work on herself, and is, I think, a really strong woman. I really respect her.
Very strong. She is very committed. She has not veered off the path of advocacy for well over a decade. Probably going on to 2 decades at this point. And it's like somebody was out to destroy her.
Yeah.
Her reputation, the work that she's doing, all over something that should have been very private.
Yeah.
Which brings me us back to the episode that we did on the hidden cameras.
Yeah, I was just looking that up before here. That was episode 175. We said, are people secretly filming you?
Right. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. We'll probably at some point find out.
Yeah.
All of this, because this seems to be the up and coming thing. Jimmy pointed out several apps that I had never heard of, that are apps used for taking pictures like this and putting them together with voice, with audio, with action. Yep. I didn't know
the
about
deep fakes.
This.
Yeah, so deep fakes are, and that's what these people were talking about in the comments. How do we make a video of her?
Right.
That's people saying to people who make the deep fakes.
Photo,
how do we make a deep fake of her? And Lauren, by the way, is she wrote legislation. I'm sure it'll get passed, but she wrote legislation that also makes the production of deep fakes to exploit somebody illegal.
Good.
That'll be a felony.
Good.
So even if you take a picture of somebody and turn that into a deep fake, that's a felony, and it should be. So point number one is that people really need to be extremely careful. I'm not telling people, I don't tell people what to do in their own private love life. It's
the privacy of their own homes.
As long as it's legal.
Yeah.
It's not really our business.
Yeah. Right.
And for people who do photos and videos and that sort of thing, it seems to be that the big takeaway is don't back up those photos and videos to the cloud, because that's where these hackers are getting in. And there are major security issues, and we talked about that on another episode. There are major security issues with the cloud, especially Apple. Apple Cloud is really bad. It's probably gotten better, but there were issues in, I think it was 2014, with all these celebrities with the leaked nudes. You had Jennifer Lawrence and a whole host of women who had these stolen from the cloud.
People have time on their hands right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And their minds are not always busy on good stuff.
Yeah.
And as we were discussing, COVID has changed the lives of many, many people. People are out for a quick buck.
Yep.
The work at home is
and
the big
that's right.
craze
People are strapped to a
rage.
Computer now, where before they were in an office where you have
Correct.
coworkers
all
and,
around you.
It's a lot harder to get away with this kind of stuff.
It sure is.
Now, so many millions and millions and millions of people are working from home.
And these apps that keep, every day there are new apps that come out. I was not aware of these that Jimmy said, mainly probably because I just don't have time right now to explore the news and what all is
she doesn't even
new.
know the name of it, guys. I told her about OnlyFans, and she said, OnlyFans? What's that? And I was like, Granny, you don't know what OnFans
No,
is.
I
So,
did not.
yeah, I mean, these are articles that were in the news just today. I mean, this is national news. Here's one. Holly Madison claims... I got to scroll up. Holly Madison claims she was afraid to leave the Playboy Mansion due to a mountain of revenge porn. Revenge porn is a massive thing right now because of what? Money and power.
Money, sure.
Money and power.
Yeah, right.
So, Hugh Hefner, before he died, She said in the series that she's doing on what is it, A&E. A&E is doing a docuseries called Secrets of Playboy. It's a 10-episode show. Holly Madison said that he would wait until all these girls were pass out drunk. They would party and binge drink, and then he would put them in these compromising positions, take photos of them, print the photos, and hand them out to people within the mansion.
Now, some people might be saying, okay, big deal. They shouldn't have been getting passed out drunk to begin with, which...
Well, and that's the same argument of saying to a rape victim, you shouldn't have been wearing a miniskirt.
Exactly right. And I want to go back to what you said early on in this conversation about Lauren. Lauren now is forced to relive things that she thought she had put to rest.
Lots of things.
Right. She is being traumatized and re-traumatized over and over and over again. She has been targeted. It's very concise, very structured what happened to her. It was purposeful. And again, this abuse is, how do you put a lid on these abusers? There are millions
you
out
don't.
there.
You can't. You
right,
won't.
there
I mean,
are
with
millions.
technology now, and with people doing more and more risky things online.
They are, and I'm
even in private.
Thinking, even if we get the laws that make this particular thing a criminal act, there's going to be
To find
new
50 new ways. 50 new avenues
right.
to exploit people.
So what's the bottom line? What do we do? How do we protect ourselves?
Well, I think one is...
And our children, because I worry about pictures of children I still see when I do scroll through even a lot of my friends' pictures with children. There's these little cute nudies, parents think they're adorable.
Go on TikTok and look at what these little kids are doing unsupervised.
It's
they're
crazy.
They're imitating what all these adults are
happening.
doing with the twerking and all this garbage, and we are so exposed and oversaturated by sex now.
We are,
and technology has driven skyrocketed demand through the roof.
And it's not weird, I guess it's been a fact all along, that the more exposure we have to something, the less shock value we have. So the more
that's right.
Normal, more normal it seems.
And the more
acceptable.
The higher you need to take up the ante to create shock in people. And you see that with a lot of these social experiments and things like that. Like, it's interesting. And, I'm glad you brought that up because Natalie and I went back and we started watching a show that we watched back, years ago, 20 years ago. Or not that long, maybe 16, 17 years ago.
That's
but
close enough to
20.
Okay. Yeah.
It was Jennifer Garner, the show Alias. And back then we were like, man, this is like, it's intense and you're on the edge of your seat. And we like those kinds of shows, like the crime, crime adventure kind of thing. And we went back and we kind of ran out of shows that interest us. We usually pick one show and then we binge watch it and then,
right.
And that's it.
It's
like
fun.
We have one show at a time. So we went back. She was like, you know what? Why don't we used to love Alias. Why don't we go back and just start with season 1, episode 1? I was like, okay, cool. So we went back and I was like, I was bored with it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, man, I remember 20 years ago, this was exhilarating. It was like, it was exciting.
You
it
were
was
on the edge of your seat. Yes.
And it just shows you that slowly over time, we've gotten so conditioned to violence and action and effects and
fast action. Fast
plot lines that
not
move
just one.
So quick.
The old westerns, the guy would pull the gun and one shot.
Yeah.
Now it's the big ammo that 100 shots at a time. You have the big mag and all that. It's different. We're living in a different time.
Yeah.
And you were so right. We've upped the ante. I don't want to repeat what was said about Lauren, the photos, because of the trigger attached to it. But that's sick what people were saying. How can we make this type of video? How can we put Lauren in this position? Eh, It's
Well, I was
sick,
reading,
it's wrong.
right. I was reading some of the comments on, well, it's not this article because this one doesn't have, oh yeah, here we go. Here are the comments. You had to click on it. Yeah, I was looking at some of these and, I'm not going to read them, but these comments are absolutely infuriating. And all the assumptions that people make, judgments, assumptions.
Right.
She was 16. If she took the photos of herself, why keep them? Read the article.
Right. I know. Yeah.
She
But
wasn't
she
16,
wasn't 16,
taking photos of
right.
herself. This is in
It
recent months.
It is infuriating, and once again, I fear for all of us, really, because 10 years ago, we weren't afraid to take pictures that were, in our eyes, funny.
You know what's interesting? You know
Funny.
what we were doing 10 years ago with our phones? It's amazing how
Oh,
conditioned we
yeah.
get.
Oh, wow.
10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I was driving truck, and I had a flip phone
Yep.
with
You
the
were right.
push
Yeah.
5 3 times, like it wasn't
Yeah.
texting like we text
Wasn't
now.
instant.
It was the
Today, everything's instant.
it was the number pad
Yeah.
where the old school ABC is, I can't even tell you what it is anymore because we haven't used them for so
I
long.
kept my old flip
In
phone
the phones,
to look
like-
at it. Yeah.
The cameras on those phones were like
they're-
1.5 megapixels.
Yeah. They
like
were horrible. You saw
horrible,
fuzz.
horrible,
You
horrible.
saw fuzz.
That was
yeah.
10 years ago.
Right. And look where we are now.
I mean,
Look at this.
It's absolutely crazy, and our kids are growing up with all of this technology and stuff that we really need to have conversations with them. That
Constantly.
even if you think about taking a picture of yourself, one, it's illegal.
Right.
You can be arrested
Right.
as a juvenile sending a photo.
And I think that's a good reminder
be
again,
arrested.
Jimmy. What's the episode where we talked about that again? That was,
I don't remember. I can link to that
Yeah.
one too.
because that is vitally important to share with our children.
But one, scare your kids.
Yes.
Because it is that serious. One, it's illegal.
Right.
Two, if those photos are being backed up, and on our phones, all of our phones, we have photos that are backed up.
Yeah, it's automatic back. Everything gets backed up automatically.
We like
The
our
phone
stuff
does it,
backed
yeah,
up.
Right.
Those photos are not safe. So if you're backing up your photos, take safe photos.
Right.
Okay. And the other thing is, let your kids know that stuff like OnlyFans and all this stuff is out there, and there are young people that are flocking to this. Here's an article again. Again, these are in the news today. Colorado deputy with OnlyFans account retires after being discovered by female officer. Here's a lady that she's been a cop for what I say 28 years. Yeah, she's been in law enforcement for 28 years, but in the past 18 months she's been doing her little side hustle on OnlyFans. And again, I'm not passing judgment. I wouldn't go on OnlyFans. I'm just saying.
I hope
Not really my cup of tea.
James, I hope I don't find you on
but
OnlyFans.
her and her husband were
Yeah.
producing these videos and
Right.
photos on OnlyFans, and this stuff is out there, and people are flocking to it in droves.
How can, like, I'm thinking parents need to be on top of this. We need a constant update of all the apps and places like this that are going on. I hadn't
Check your
heard of
kids'
that.
devices
I don't know.
daily.
Right. I wouldn't have known that. I could see that uploaded on my iPad at home by one of
Yeah.
the grandkids. I wouldn't know what it was. I would have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you have to check these devices routinely. You have to have conversations with your kids routinely. There has to be an awareness, and you can't shy away from this and be like, well, there's some bad stuff out there. No, tell your kids.
Right.
People are shaking their little tails, all over the place,
Right.
and you're not going to be one of them.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Don't ever let me catch you. In fact,
Ah,
we don't let our kids, and we're not gonna let our kids have any social media apps. There's no Snapchat,
right.
no TikTok, no Facebook, no Instagram. They don't have any of
That's
that.
a
They're not
smart.
they're
That's
not going to be allowed
right.
to have any of that
Okay, that's
until they're grown
smart.
up and out of the
Right,
house.
right.
I mean,
Smart.
it's just
No,
there's
no,
too
yeah.
much garbage out there, and there's no way to monitor all of that stuff. Once you start down that road, um, here's another app that just cropped up. It's called Quinn. Erotic app Quinn, founded by Snapchat CEO's sister, has 300,000 subscribers. This video, these dumb things autoplay when you click on your tab. Um, so this lady, 24 years old, and she started this back in 2019. So she was, what, just barely 20?
Right. And
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 she
Jimmy,
started this app.
as I'm sitting here, it's overwhelming.
It is.
Life was simpler when you were a kid. When I was a kid, life was simple.
Yeah.
We didn't have all this access to this. When I wanted sex ed, we didn't get it in school. We didn't get anything. You guys got a little bit in school. I had the encyclopedia
Mm-hmm.
and looked up body parts. That's the only
Yeah.
way that's how I learned. Today, wow.
Oh, I know.
It's
It's
just
yeah. It's just there's a
and it's
bombardment.
overwhelming for us to know is out there. Think of what our young people are going through. Think
Yeah.
of what it must be like for their little minds, their young minds, who can't decipher yet right from wrong, good
Hmm.
choices from bad choices, um, let alone think in the future. They're not thinking, well, what if I take a picture and I send it to so and so, and 10 years from now, 5 years from now, they're not thinking that way. So, as their
Not at
parents and
all.
grandparents, we sure do need to be on the ball and be protecting them. We
Yeah,
truly
it's
do.
it's our job, it's our responsibility, it's our duty, it's our obligation as parents, as grandparents, as
Well, I'm thinking,
caregivers,
and to alert
caretakers.
our schools to keep our schools informed. I served on the school board for over 15 years. We appreciated when a parent would come in and say, "Hey, do you know about
Mm-hmm.
this, and this?
Yes.
I found it on my kid, in my kids' belongings, and do you know about it?"
Yeah.
Well, schools don't always know about
Yeah.
this unless they're told.
Yeah.
Schools, churches, kids play on their phones in
Yep.
churches. They're on their phones all the
I
time,
know.
like
I
it
know.
or not. That's the world in which we
And
live.
unhindered. Like it's
Hmm.
amazing to me. And again, I'm not passing judgment. That's not the point of this, but I'm just I'm saying the amount of unawareness that parents
Hmm.
have about what that little device is capable of that they put in their kids' hands
Oh
at my
yeah,
daughter's age at 11
yeah.
years old.
Hmm.
I look at,
Oh yeah.
when she's around her friends,
Hmm.
I glance over and I look at what they have access to just generally on their phone, and I'm
Hmm.
like, holy cow! Like our kids, the web browsers are disabled. Um, you know,
Right.
my daughter comes to me and she's like, "Hey, give me your phone." she's Let me play Wordle because
Oh yeah.
yeah, thanks to them, thanks to all my family members, my
We
daughter
love
is
that
now
game. We
hooked
love that.
on
Yeah.
Wordle. But she says whenever I Google something, it says there is no app that's able to open for this search,
Uh,
and she knows, and we told her
right.
like this app
There's a
is
reason
disabled,
for that. There's a
right?
reason.
And if
Right.
you ever want to use the internet, if you ever
Yeah.
want to do Google searches,
Hmm.
you're going to do it on our phone
Hmm.
or one of our
Under your
computers.
supervision.
And for
Right.
her, it's not weird. It's not bizarre.
Hmm.
She doesn't stomp out of the room and you
Right.
don't give me freedom. It's just it's
Hmm.
so normal and so part of her life
But
that she's
and
like, "Hey, give me your phone."
I'm not defending
Okay.
parents, but I would have, without doubt, been one of those parents because of having so many children to stay on top of everything, that I would have been hounded, hounded, hounded. Please, 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 please. We want an iPad. We want an iPad.
Mm-hmm.
We give it an iPad, and let's face it,
Here, take 3.
it's a babysitter.
I know.
And
Yeah.
parents, we've all done it, like it or not. We've sat our kids in front of a movie or in front of Sesame Street, you know, unsupervised. Now we have a whole lot different than Sesame Street
Yeah.
and Blue's Clues.
Yeah.
There's a whole different world out there that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway. Just be aware that, I
Right.
mean, this stuff it's out there. Your kids are getting access to all kinds of stuff. It's getting harder and harder to protect them, to keep them safe from the stuff that's on the internet. Educate them, teach them, let them know, and you yourselves, you know, take
Right.
precautions. If you're doing things that you don't want out there, then take measures
Right.
to protect that,
Right.
because man,
And talk with your kids. I think we have lost the art of talking to one another.
yeah,
We hide in these little corners and crevices with the phones, and that's our daily conversation. Put the phones down. Put
Yeah.
the iPads down. Talk to each other. Tell your children why you're concerned. Look at them and say,
yeah,
there's so much stuff out there that's not good for you. I love you this much that's why I'm doing this. But you know, bring back the art of talking. Oh,
yeah,
for
yeah,
real.
for sure.
Jimmy and I like to talk.
We do.
We do.
I just noticed. I was sorry for you guys watching this. I just looked, and the focal point is like shifting on this. So we've been like going from blurry to clear,
okay.
and I've been looking at these different
Sorry about
tabs,
that. Okay.
and so not looking at us. So yeah, if it was shifting focus the whole time, I apologize for that. We'll move the focal point for next time. But yeah, talk, communicate.
Yes.
Think before you do, and just know, like, it's not impossible to protect.
Right. It's not.
But we've got to be really guarded. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. We've got to do a much stricter job at being
We do.
vigilant and
Yes.
being aware and all of that stuff. So take care to protect yourself and your kids.
And thank you for listening, because I feel
Absolutely.
like listening to this podcast is one extra step of taking those precautions,
Yeah.
because we try to give you a piece of education each time we're with you that will help you in protecting your children better.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys. Thanks for
Yes.
tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you next round.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode. A special thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. Please help us get the word out by searching for the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to hit subscribe and rate the show. Please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the rewards our patrons receive.